Magandang araw po sa lahat ng aspiring future criminologist po natin, and welcome to our criminology online tutorial. In this lecture series, special topics will be discussed in the different areas of the criminologist licensure examination. Of course, it will be discussed by yours truly, your mentor in this tutorial, yours truly, Dr. John C. Villarmia.
In this video, I will discuss to you the handwriting characteristics. Okay, these characteristics will focus on the individual characteristics. Okay, um, remember that individual characteristics of handwriting will help the examiner to individualize, identify, determine the specific writer, or to determine whether or not a certain handwriting was written by um, one or two persons, or certain documents or handwritings were written by one or the same person. Okay, so these characteristics are the following. First, we have the form. Okay, take note that each writer or individual has its own style, or chosen writing style or form of a letter. Okay, this includes the design and the shape of the letter. Okay, so take note that according to Gonzalez in his book published in the year 2008, that similarities in the form of handwriting is not sufficient indication of identity. Okay, but basic differences or uniqueness of form, shape, or design of a letter are indications that these handwritings were written by different persons or writing. Okay, so it is quite obvious that at first glance of the handwriting, the examiner will usually determine the form, the writing style, the design, or the shape of the individual letters. Okay, so for example, in the picture below, we have the letter A. So this letter A is written in different forms. Okay, so we have that letter A. We have also letter B that is also written in different style and different form. Although these letters were written in cursive writing, but the form, the way, the shape, the form of each letter were written differently. Okay. Next, we have here the slope or slant. Okay. In determining the slope or the slant, it could be described as either forward or towards the right, or the slant is backward or towards the left. Okay, take note, this is the angle or inclination of the axis of the letters. So, yung slant po natin is pwedeng towards the right natin, or towards the left, or forward or backward slant. Okay, to determine the specific degree of slant, if the degree of slant is towards the right, then you need to determine the specific angle. So you need a protractor to measure the degree of inclination towards the right. Okay. Take note also that slant is the most common way of hiding the the habit of a particular person. Sometimes when a person wants to hide his identity, of handwriting, wants to hide his habit, okay, wants to disguise his handwriting. So slant is one of the most common changes. Okay, so instead of his habit that his way of writing is towards the right, his slant, Okay? So, pwede po niyang baguhin na towards the left or a backward slant. Okay? Then, we have the size of the letters. Okay? So, there are instances that, for example, um, when we are writing an assignment or we are making an assignment, and then meron po tayong mga tatlong sentences na isinulat, okay? And then one of our classmates, for example, attempted to copy our assignment. So makikita mo yung differences, okay, in the size of the letters. For example, the original assignment were written in 3 lines, for example. So there are instances that in the paper, okay, of the person who copied the particular assignment, posible po na ang tatlong lines ng assignment ay maging 4 or posible po maging 2 lang because um, it may differ in sizes. Okay? Meron pong mga habit natin na sometimes the size of the letters when our teachers are requiring us to submit a particular assignment, then kailangan po natin punuin yung isang papel. So one technique, okay, one technique of complying that requirement is to enlarge, okay, or is to adjust the size of our letters, okay. Next, we have here the proportion or the ratio, okay? Proportion ratio is the relationship between the tall and the short letters, okay? If the tall letters have loops twice longer than the height of the short letters, the ratio is described as high, okay? If the opposite, the ratio is low. Okay, so again, balikan po natin. This is the rule. If the tall letters, for example, this letter H, okay, have loops twice longer than the height of the short letters, okay, the ratio is described as high. If the opposite, the ratio is low. Okay, yeah, that is the rule. So, for example, in this the second line, okay, for example, this one, height and then ratio, this is our tall letters, and this are our small or short letters, okay. So kung titingnan po natin, yung letter H is not the height of this letter H is not twice longer than the loop of this small letter. So matatawag po natin dito na, or matatawag po natin ito na the ratio is low, okay. Unlike the example above, okay, this one, the letter H, kung titingnan po natin, okay, at first glance, matatawag po natin ito na, kumbaga, doble yung height. Ito yung small letters natin or short letters, at ito yung tall letters natin. Kung titingnan po natin, is parang doble po yung height ng letter H compared to letter E and letter I. So, if we will follow the rule, when we describe the ratio, this example at the top, ito po, is the ratio is high. Yung sa baba, the ratio is low. Okay? That is for proportion and ratio. Next, connecting strokes. Connecting strokes, these are strokes that links or connects a letter with one following. Okay? It may be a connection between capital letters or the lower case letters. Okay? As an examiner, you need to observe if the uppercase letters are connected with the small letters, or the small letters are connected with each other, because sometimes even though the writer is applying or utilizing the cursive style, hindi naman po lahat ng mga litra ay naka-connect. Okay? So, connecting strokes are sometimes uh, or connecting strokes may differ even though the style of handwriting is cursive. So, dapat tingnan po natin yung uppercase or yung capital letter and then yung small letter if they are always connected, okay, or if there are unusual, okay, or consistent habits that can be found in the handwriting of a person. Isa po natin titingnan doon na characteristic is ang connecting stroke or strokes. Okay? Next, we have here the terminal and initial strokes. So, this terminal and initial strokes are essential, especially when the examiner is conducting an examination about signatures. Okay? Forgery of signatures. Because normally, um, if there is no attempt to simulate or there is no attempt to copy the signature of a particular person, usually there is that what we call a flying start. Okay? Matitingnan po natin, ma-observe po natin this initial. Okay, this is our initial stroke. Okay? This is our initial stroke. Kung titingnan po natin, meron po dito na flying start. Okay? And then also the terminal stroke, okay? Meaning the end stroke, there is what we call a gradual diminishing of uh, the stroke. Okay? Hindi po bigla yung pagkaputol ng stroke. Kumbaga, from a very solid line quality, unti-unti pong mawawala yung marka or unti-unti pong mawawala yung ink. Okay? That is gradually diminishing or vanishing terminal stroke. Okay? Kasi po, if a certain signature is forged, sometimes one of the weakness of the forger is, lalo na pag hindi pa expert yung forger po natin, is yung terminal stroke po natin is, there is an abrupt end of the stroke. Hindi po gradual yung diminishing or hindi po gradual yung pagkawala ng stroke. Okay? That is for terminal and initial stroke. Next, we have here the pen left. Okay, take note of this because palagi po itong lumalabas sa board exam. This is an interruption in stroke caused by removing the pen from the paper. Ang keywords po natin dito is yung interruption or a gap, okay? A gap in a stroke or a gap between letters, line because of the removal of the pen from the paper. Okay, pin lefts are disconnection between letters and or combination of letters or maybe due to lack of movement control. Okay, tingnan po natin or lagi po nating tandaan, pin left is caused by removing the pen from the paper. Okay, next, hiatus or pen jump. Okay, take note also this pen jump or hiatus is there is a gap between strokes, but this is not due to the removal of the pen from the paper. This is due to the speed in writing and defective writing instruments. Sometimes po yung writing instrument natin, yung ballpen natin ay hindi po yung malabas yung ink, but we do not remove, okay, the pen from the paper. Ang tawag po natin sa gap is hiatus or pen jump. Okay? Take note that hiatus or pen jump is considered to be as a special form of pen left, okay? Distinguished in bold gaps and that of perceptible gaps in appearance in writing. Okay? The only difference Pag sinasabi nating pen left, there is removal of the pen from the paper. Okay? Hiatus, there is no removal of the pen from the paper. Okay? Ang dalawa po, hiatus at saka pen left, there is that gap, okay, between strokes or letters. Okay? The cause of hiatus is maybe due to speed in writing or a defective writing instrument. Yan po ang lagi nating tandaan. Okay? Next, we have here the lateral spacing. Okay? Take note, lateral spacing, it may be a spacing between letters or a spacing between words. Okay? Tingnan po natin as an examiner, we need to observe if there is that consistent um, spacing, okay? Pari-pareho po ba ang spacing between words or spacing between letters, okay? Next, we have also the shading. This is due to the widening of ink strokes with increased pressure on the paper. Kadalasan po pag malakas yung pressure when we write, usually po yung handwriting kung titingnan po natin is mas clear at saka mas visible at saka yung shading niya is masyadong malapad like this one. Okay? Sometimes it is also due to the defect of the pen nib or the splitting of the pen nib resulting to the widening of the ink lines as controlled by the variation in pen pressure. Sometimes, pag nahuhulog po yung ballpen natin, okay, minsan, magagamit pa, and then minsan po, if ginagamit po natin, kadalasan or sometimes, there is what we call spitting of the pen nib or yung nagspot-spot yung mga inks when we write. Okay? Next, we have the line quality. Okay? This is a visible record in the written stroke of the basic movement and manner of holding the pen instrument. Okay? Ang titingnan po natin sa line quality is that are the lines shaky or regular? Are there any shaky or irregular strokes? Are the lines natural or consistent po ba from the beginning up to the last word of a particular document or handwriting, or are there any variations? Okay? Are there any irregular, shaky, and necessary strokes that can be found? Okay? Yan po ang line quality. Next, we have here the alignment. Ang tandaan po natin is we have here dapat meron po tayong baseline because we cannot determine the alignment if we will not determine first kung wala pong line. Okay? Kung wala pong line yung paper, we need to determine the imaginary baseline. Okay? Our imaginary baseline is the foot of the letters or the sentences. Okay? So for example, yung this one, ang atin pong alignment, it could be above the baseline or below the baseline. Meron pong mga alignment, okay? Meron pong mga handwriting na yung alignment nila is ascending, okay? Parang umaakyat ng bundok, and sometimes po is meron naman pong alignment na okay, downward yung trail ng kanilang mga handwritings or kanilang mga words. Okay? Yan. Alignment is one of the features or the characteristics that a certain examiner must be able to observe. Okay? Next, we have here the written. Okay? So we have here the two handwritings. The first one is described as poor, and the one below is described as good. Take note the term flowing hand when A writer is skillful, artistic, and uh, has good rhythm and handwriting. Okay? As described, rhythm is the balanced quality of movement of the harmonious occurrence of stress or impulse. Okay? Next, we have here the writing skill. It could be a good or a bad writing skill. For example, this picture on the right side, this is an example of a bad writing skill, and the other one is an example of a good writing skill. Okay, this is a relative degree of ability of writers' proficiency. Okay, this is dependent on many factors, okay, such as manual dexterity or skill, and our skill may be inherited or may be learned, okay, or acquired. Next, we have here the pen pressure. So the pressure usually will be usually determined through uh, the shading of a particular handwriting, okay, because usually um, if the pressure is higher, okay, kadalasan po yung mark sometimes will be found at the back of the paper. There will be what do you call this, um, um, prints, okay. The prints can be visible at the back of the paper, or the indentations, okay, the indentations of the handwriting when you touch the back of the paper. Usually meron po tayong ma-feel na roughness at the back of the paper, usually if the force is higher, okay. Next, we have here the tremor, okay. Ang tandaan po natin sa tremor is this is deviation, or these are deviations from uniform strokes due to lack of smoothness, perfectly apparent even without um, magnification. These are irregular and shaky, okay? Shaky strokes, okay? Take note, meron po tayong classes of tremors or kinds of tremors. Meron po tayong genuine tremor, meron po tayong tremor of age, meron po tayong tremor of illiteracy, tremor of weakness. Okay, uh, as a person, for example, a senior citizen, usually, okay, as the age, there will be tremors in their handwriting. Okay, that is natural. And then, for example, in illiteracy, or for those persons who are not really good in handwriting, or there is that difficulty in handwriting. And then, for example, another one is tremor of weakness, when one is suffering from a particular disease which enable him to perform consistently or regularly the or normally the handwriting, okay. Then we have here also the tremor of fraud, okay. Ito yung tremors na makikita natin when a certain person tries to copy or forge a particular handwriting or a particular signature, okay. Meron din po tayong natural variation. Take note, our common example of natural variation is um, this is influenced by physical and mental conditions such as fatigue, intoxication, illness, nervousness, and age of the writer. So, sometimes, at first glance, masasabi po natin na hindi sa kanya yung handwriting, because of the variations of the habits. But upon examinations or upon interview, we can also ask as to the position of the writer during the execution of the document. We can also ask the writer as to his um, the writing instrument used, or is he writing in the table, in the chair, because the position of the writer usually affects the the handwriting or the output. Okay. Next, we have the rubric or embellishment. Take note, these are unnecessary strokes. So in the form of the letter, for example, even though we will not add this one, a rubric or embellishment, without this rubric or embellishment, still a form of a letter can be readable or visible. Okay? This is described as fancy curls or loops, etc. Okay, not necessary to the legibility of the letter forms. Okay, but incorporated in writing for decoration or ornamental purposes. Okay, usually common example po natin dito um, is for example, nalalapit na po yung Christmas, okay? Kadalasan po na letters, okay, used in um, Merry Christmas. Kung titingnan po natin yung letter M, meron po dong unnecessary stroke before forming the letter M. Meron po dong curls, okay? The initial curl of the letter M, okay? So, for example, um, like this one, okay? When someone is writing letter M, for example, okay, this one can be considered as an embellishment, okay? So without this letter M can be readable, okay? That is legible, meaning this unnecessary stroke or curl before the letter M is called as embellishment. Okay. Next, we have here terminologies concerning the stroke. Okay, characteristics. Okay, so we have here number one, the arc or the garland. This is a curve formed inside or top. Okay, curve or loop as in small letters. Okay, so this is, for example, ito po. And then, the other one here. Meron din po dito. These are examples of a garland. Okay? Meron din po dito. Next, we have the baseline. Take note again, as what I have stated a while ago, that if a particular paper doesn't have the visible or legible baseline, okay, this line, like for example this one, this can be considered as our baseline. Okay, ruled or imaginary line upon which the writing rests. Okay, ito yung foots ng ating mga letters. Okay, so sometimes meron pong mga writers na sumusulat na, for example, yung handwriting nila is paakyat ng bundok, for example, like this one. Okay, so yung baseline natin is ascending or paakyat. Meron din pong mga writers na sumusulat ng parang pababa yung baseline nila, yung alignment nila. Okay, so this one pwede siyang upward or ascending. Okay, so take note, our alignment can be described by sentence or by word. Okay, because sometimes when a writer writes, for example, his alignment is usually, for example, upward. But when he writes the first letter of the word, it will go back to the original baseline. And then when he writes the next succeeding letters, ito po, umaakyat na po. Okay? So for example, this is our imaginary baseline. So usually, yung first letter po niya is nandun sa nakatapak sa baseline. Okay? Like the letter J and then the letter B. Okay? But kadalasan yung succeeding letters of the word are paakyat or ascending. Okay? So we cannot separate baseline and alignment of the handwriting or as handwriting characteristics. Take note of that. So to determine the alignment, we need to determine also first the baseline. Okay? Next, we have here the bird, rudimentary or incomplete or basic initial upstroke of a letter. So, parang biguti po yon. Ito po, for example, we have here, and then here, these are examples of bird. Okay? Initial upstroke. Next, we have here the central part of the body. Take note, our keyword here is we have the main portion of the letter. So we have here the letter B. Okay, we have here, and then in letter D we have also here in letter G. Okay, central. This is the central part of the letter G, and then also the letter P. Okay? Take note, main portion of the letter minus. Take note of the word minus, the initial of strokes, terminal stroke, diacritic, etc. Okay? Next, we have here the bowl, a poly-rounded oval or circular form of a letter. For example, a complete letter O. Okay? Next, we have also the buckle or buckle nut. Okay? So, this buckle nut usually observed in cursive. Okay? Hindi po ito makikita sa printed style of writing or block style or shall we say hand lettering or script writing. This is usually found in cursive handwriting, a buckle or buckle nut. Okay, so we have here examples of a buckle nut. Then in this letter, in letter H, we have also here the buckle nut. We have also the buckle nut in letter K. Okay, next, we have here the diacritic. Okay, take note, do not be confused as to diacritic and embellishment. Okay, embellishment again is an unnecessary stroke or not essential stroke. So kahit wala po yung stroke na yun, is legible po yung letter form natin. While diacritic is a stroke necessary in the completion of a particular letter. Okay, so for example, common examples of diacritics are the dot, this one, of the letter I, and this one, the dash or the cross mark of the letter T. So for example, this one, yung vertical line na yan, walang cross mark, wala ding dot. Okay? We can be confused. Okay? Or magdadoubt po tayo as to what letter is that. Pero pag nilagyan mo yan ng dot at the top, okay, like that one, is matatawag po natin ito na letter I. Okay? Another example is this one. So, pwede siyang mag-letter I, pwede rin din mag-letter T. Okay? So, this is the diacritic. Okay? Yan. Vertical line. Pwedeng number 1, pwedeng letter L. Okay? So, lagyan natin ng diacritic, the cross mark. This one is letter T na yan or pwede rin plus. Okay? That is the importance of diacritic. Take note that T crossing or the dash and the dots of the letter I and J is an element added to complete certain letter. Okay? These are important strokes in a particular letter form. Okay, that is diacritic. Next is we have here the hesitation, a term applied to irregular thickening of ink, which is found when writing slows down or stop or while the pen take a stock of the position. So for example, nagsusulat po tayo, yan, tapos there will be hesitation, so makikita po natin yung uh, thickening of the ink. Lalo na po yung kapag ginagamit po natin is yung sign pen. Okay? Masyadong obvious po yung irregular thickening of the ink if gumagamit po tayo ng sign pen when writing. Okay? Next, we have here the hook or through. Okay? This is a minute curve. Okay? Ito po. Or in our fingerprint subject, ito po ay tinatawag na furrows. Okay? Para itong canal. Okay? For example, yan, letter H. Diba? So, yan. This part is the hook or through. Okay? Which often occurs at the end of the terminal stroke and it is sometimes it occurs at the beginning of an initial stroke. Okay? So, pwede rin po ito sa beginning or initial stroke. For example, magsusulat po tayo ng letter M. Okay? Yan. So, this one can be called as a hook or through. Okay? The bend on the inner side of the bottom loop or the curve of the small letter. That is hook or through. Okay? Next, we have here the knob, extra deposit of ink in the initial and terminal stroke. Okay? Or extra. Yan. Okay? This is the terminal stroke. Then we have also the knob at the initial stroke. Okay? And then another one in letter M, we have here the knob, extra deposit of ink, meaning not uniform po yung line natin. For example, from this point of the letter M down towards this terminal stroke, makikita po natin there is that extra ink. Okay? Makikita po natin extra ink at the terminal stroke of the letter M. And also, in the last example, we have here, this is the initial stroke of the letter P. Makikita po natin yung extra deposit of ink known as knob in that letter P in the initial stroke. Okay? Next, we have here the loop. So, oblong curves such as found in small letter F. Okay? Again, in small letter F, if the handwriting style is cursive. Okay? If the handwriting style is cursive in letter F, letter G, and letter L. So, these are the loops. Okay? Ito po yung mga loops po natin. Okay? So, sa letter H, if that is a cursive handwriting, ito po yung loop. Okay? It will be formed at the upper or lower part of the letter. So, sa letter H, it will be formed at the top or upper part. Okay? Sa letter G, it could be formed at the lower part of the letter. Okay? Then we have also the eye loop or the eyelid, a small loop formed by strokes that extend in a divergent direction. Also can be found in a cursive handwriting. So for letter B, yan po. Okay? This one is the eyelet. Letter O, the eyelet. And then we have here letter W, and then we have also here, the first example is we have here the letter A. Okay, so that is an eyelid word, eyelid. Next, we have the oval, the portion of the letter which is oval in shape, the small letter A, V, G, Q contain oval. Okay, the next terminologies we have here patching, and we have here ray tracing. Okay, take note and do not be confused of these terms. Okay, kapag sinasabi po nating patching, yung keyword po natin dito is going back to a defective portion. Okay? So, when a person, for example, magsusulat po tayo, then, like that one, so when you try to, or when you try to, for example, when you try to correct, okay, when you try to, yan, gusto nyong baguhin yung form ng letter, that is patching or retouching. Okay? This one, yung letter N natin hindi po masyadong legible, so kailangan po natin dagdagan. Yan. That is now patching or retouching. Okay? While retracing or retrace, that is a part of a stroke which is superimposed upon the original stroke. Meaning, it is a stroke that goes, okay, over another stroke. So, commonly observed in cursive handwriting. So, for example, magsusulat po tayo ng letter L. Yan. Okay? This one could be a ray tracing. Okay? Another example is this one. Okay? Yan. This is an example of a ray tracing. There is that upward stroke from this point. Okay? Then, towards this point is a downward stroke. Pagdating po dito sa taas, dito po nagkaroon ng ray tracing or ray trace. Okay? Take note, a stroke that goes over another stroke. Okay? Superimposed or nag-overlap po yung mga strokes natin. Okay? Unlike patching is, ang keyword po natin dyan is going over a defective portion. Okay? So, another example po natin is the vertical stroke of the letter D. Okay? Like this one. Yan. Or letter B. Okay? Pag nagsusulat po tayo ng letter B, again, this one, for example. Okay? There are chances na magkakaroon ng retrace or retracing po dito sa vertical or downward stroke po natin, then upward stroke. Okay? That is retracing and patching. Okay? Take note of that. Then we have also the so-called shoulder or hump. We have here examples are the small letter M. We have also small letter N. We have also small letter B. Okay? And then small letter Y. Okay? So, these are shoulders of the small letter N. Okay? Letter H, letter M, letter B, and letter Y. Okay? Then, number 17, we have the spar. Okay? Take note, this is different from bird because the bird is like this one. Okay? Spar, this is the spar, a short horizontal terminal strokes mostly found on small letters. Okay? Short initial or terminal stroke. So, pwede siya sa terminal stroke at then pwede rin sa initial stroke. This one is the spur. This one is the spur. And then a spur at the terminal stroke. Then a spur at the initial stroke. Ang tanan po natin is short horizontal terminal stroke. Okay? Next, we have here the stop or the stem. This refers to any major long downward stroke of a letter. Okay? In short, this one, example, okay? Meron po tayong letter B, the stop. Dito po, letter C, okay? Then letter T, and then letter L, okay? Long downward stroke. So, example, this one, this is the stop or stem, okay? Ito po yung stop or stem natin for letter B. Okay? And then for letter C, kasi sinasabi po natin, major long downward stroke, ito po yun. Okay? This part is the stop or stem of letter C. Okay? If you have any concerns, clarifications about the things that I have discussed, do not forget do not hesitate to message. Okay? Huwag po kayong mahiyang mag-message or mag-send ng mga clarifications about the videos that I have posted in our class.